When people think of cars from the 1950s, they usually think of two cars, the Chevy Bel Air or the Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz. And that's fine, because those cars were indeed very stylish and beloved by all. But among those cars lies a secret underdog, a car that no one ever thinks of, from a brand that no longer exists. I am of course talking about the 1957 Plymouths, designed by Virgil M. Exner, Harry T. Bannister, Clifford C. Voss, Carl Reynolds, and Robert E. Bigman. The 1957 Plymouth models were absolutely astonishing to look at. They were styled to look like cars from the year 1960 as a part of Chrysler's forward look movement. Of course, in 1960 we got something that barely resembles the 1957 Plymouth, but still looks cool. What sets a 1957 Plymouth apart from, let's say, a Bel Air from the same year is glaringly obvious. From a bumper that has two levels down to where the taillights were positioned, the 1957 Plymouths were definitely ahead of their time. Plymouth was a working-class man's brand. They weren't flashy like Cadillacs, but they were just stylish enough to develop somewhat of a following. The tail lamps were part of the tail fins, as opposed to the Bel Air, which had its rear lights on the rear bumper. The headlamps and indicators are right next to each other, forming a double headlamp kind of look, something that the 1958 Plymouth would implement in those year models. As standard with 1950s cars, the interior of the car was lavishly designed, with the ever so iconic thin steering wheel accompanied by the leather bench seats. The instrument cluster was in a rectangular shape, with the gauges for oil, temperature, gas, and the clock surrounding the speedometer. All of it lit up green when the headlights were on. The exterior of the car was just as good looking as the interior, with tall vertical tail fins that leaned to the sides of the car, down to the big grille that wrapped itself from side to side at the front of the car, accompanied by a golden emblem in the middle. This made for a design that set itself apart from the likes of Chevrolet and Dodge. The fender ornaments were sleek, the mirrors being positioned not on the door, but rather on the fenders as well. The windshield of the car wrapped itself around the sides, giving the driver a clearer view of what's around his car, something that you didn't get with a Chevy back then. Needless to say, Plymouth did what Chevy didn't. In 1958, the new Plymouths were basically copy and pasted off of the older designs. The indicators were now hidden above the headlamps, and the reversing light was part of the bumper instead of the tail fins. The interior stayed virtually the same. Whilst they were brilliant, they had one fatal flaw. They were prone to rusting away quickly. The 1957 and 1958 models allegedly would be rusted out and after only 3 years of production, making them less desirable for car collectors. The chances of finding a late 50s Plymouth nowadays isn't low, nor is it very high. You need to spend a good amount of time looking around the country, just like any other older car, really. 1957 Plymouths are underappreciated for several reasons. Among them was the fact they came out the same year as the iconic Chevy Bel Air, and they were overshadowed by their 1958 counterparts after the release of the 1983 Stephen King adaptation of Christine. They might look ugly to some, but one cannot deny that they look unique and helped start the appreciation for late 50s Plymouths. If it wasn't for the 1957 year model, we would likely have never seen the now iconic Christine car the way it is now.